Today we're diving into a deep and fascinating topic, understanding how Christians view the Trinity. What it means when we say Jesus is the Son of God, and how this connects to the oneness of God. Let's unpack this together in a way that makes sense, step by step. We often hear that God is one. But what does that actually mean? The word one can have different implications. For example, if I say the United States is one nation, or if Russia is one nation, it doesn't mean Russia is one person. The same if I say you are one family, it doesn't mean there's only one person in your family. So when we say God is one, we need to understand what that oneness entails. The Bible and the Quran agree on one crucial point. God is unlike anything in creation. In chapter 42, verse 11 of the Quran, it says, "There is nothing comparable to him." This same truth is echoed in chapter 112, verse 4. "There is nothing like unto him." God is unique, distinct, and far beyond what we can comprehend. So we don't assume what it means for God to be one. Instead, we allow Him to reveal what He is like. That's where the concept of the Trinity begins to unfold. Christians believe that one God is revealed as Father, Word, and Spirit. The Father is like the source. The Word, who is Jesus, came from the Father and later became flesh through Mary. And the Spirit is the breath of God, the breath that gives life to everything. Let me give you an analogy to explain this. Though keep in mind, please, God is greater than any analogy we can use. There is no analogy that we can use to explain the being of God. When you speak your words, they come from within you, right? You are the source of those words. In the same way, Jesus, the Word of God, originates from God. Just as you cannot exist without your words, God has never existed without His Word. To say otherwise would imply there was a time when God lacked His Word or His speech, which would contradict His eternal nature. So the Son is eternal. The Word of God has always been. It has no beginning and it has no end. Okay? Now, let's talk about the Spirit. In Hebrew, the word Spirit is ruach. Can also mean breath or wind. In Greek, it's pneuma. Think about your own breath for a moment. Put your hand in front of your mouth and speak. Notice how breath accompanies your words as you speak. God's Spirit, or breath, is not like ours. It's not physical. But this analogy helps us understand, just as you cannot live without breath, God's Spirit is life-giving. The Spirit comes out from God to give life to His creation. For example, in the Quran, when Allah creates Adam, He breathes His Spirit into him to give him life. But here's the key. If the Spirit comes from God, and there is nothing created within God, then the Spirit itself is uncreated. It is eternal, just as God is eternal. So God exists eternally with His Word and Spirit. This is where we begin to see the Christian understanding of the Trinity. One God revealed as Father, Word, and Spirit. The Father is the source. The Word, Jesus, comes from him. And the Spirit, the breath of God, gives life. They are distinct, but they are not separate. Here's an important point. When the Word became flesh and entered Mary, that wasn't the beginning of Jesus' existence. Before he became flesh, he existed as spirit with the Father. So Jesus is more than just a man. He is the Word of God, who existed with God from the beginning, and who took on flesh to dwell among us. Even in the Quran, it speaks of Allah's Word and Spirit coming from him. For example, Surah 15:29 describes Allah breathing his spirit into Adam. And in Sunni theology, Allah's Word, or Kalam, is uncreated. This aligns within the Christian belief that Jesus, the Word, is uncreated and eternal. So why does this matter? It shows us that God is relational. He reveals himself as a loving Father, as the Word who became flesh to dwell among us, and as the Spirit who gives life and sustains all things. Jesus, the Word of God, came down not only to teach, but to save. He took on his flesh to show us the fullness of God's love. And the Spirit? The Spirit works in us to bring life, transformation, and connection to God. This understanding brings us closer to grasping the beauty and depth of God's nature. It's not about three gods. It's one God, eternally existing as Father, Word, and Spirit. Now, I know this can be a lot to take in. The concept of God as Father, Word, and Spirit can feel overwhelming, especially if you're coming from a different belief system or if this is your first time hearing about the Trinity. But let me encourage you. God's nature is not meant to confuse us. It's meant to draw us closer to Him, as it has me. Because I've always been curious about who God is, who Jesus is, and who the Spirit of God is. And as I began to read the Bible and learn more about it, it has actually drawn me closer to my Father. But think about this. If God is truly infinite and beyond all comprehension, wouldn't we expect His nature to be far greater and more complex than anything we see in creation? If everything in creation points to a Creator who is higher, deeper, and more intricate than we can imagine, then the Trinity isn't a contradiction. It's a revelation of God's greatness. I also want to address a common concern. Does believing in the Trinity mean Christians worship three gods? Absolutely not. The Trinity doesn't mean three separate gods working together. It means one God, eternally existing as Father, Word, and Spirit. They are not parts of God, as if He were divided. Instead, they are fully, completely one in essence, perfectly united in will, power, and purpose. Think about your own experience. You are one person, but you also have a mind, a voice, and a spirit. These aren't separate entities. They are all part of who you are. This analogy, while imperfect, gives us a glimpse into how God can be one and yet reveal Himself as Father, Word, and Spirit. Now, let's get down to it. A God of love and compassion. What does He want? He wants what's best for you. He wants to reveal Himself to you. but your doubts are standing in the way. It's not God who is silent. It's your fear that's making you deaf to his voice. He promises, if you believe I am, and if you seek me with all your heart, I will make myself known. But every time God answers, we doubt. We ask, but why? Why is it this way? Why me? What if this is wrong? And this is where the enemy plays a role, using your fear against you. The enemy knows exactly how to attack. He uses what you fear the most, and often that's the fear we have of God. Let me tell you something. Healthy fear of God doesn't mean being afraid of him. It's about knowing he is just, he is loving, and he is compassionate. If you have a good father, when you cry out to him, he will not ignore you. He won't punish you. But the fear you feel about God, could it be because you had a father who wasn't compassionate? This is a painful realization for many. The enemy knows that when human fathers fail, it makes it harder to trust in God, the Father. But God is different. He is perfect. Even if your earthly father or mother forsakes you, God will never leave you. Psalm 27:10 says, though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. And his love is so much greater than any love you could ever experience on this earth. If you are someone who is afraid of God, or trusting in the signs that he's giving you to lead you to his Son, I want to tell you today, he is not the one causing that fear. Your fear of God could be rooted in your relationship with your earthly father. And that's what the enemy wants. You to reject the love of a perfect father because you've been hurt by an imperfect human. And I'll let you know that when we cry out to God to show us who he is, he always answers. We are the ones that don't like the answer, so we don't accept it. But God keeps showing us who he is over and over and over, and we keep rejecting the answer over and over and over. But he's still calling you, all of us. So I hope this video can help you understand the Trinity a little bit better. No analogy can ever even give a glimpse of the being of God. He is a good Father, and he will always respond to us when we ask. So ask. Ask him today. Ask him to lead you in the right way, and he will. Thank you, guys.